Action Comics 1026, Brian Michael Bendis writing with John Romita Jr. on the art. And oh boy. So, anyone who follows me on Twitter, at Wibble89, if you don't already, they'll see that I was reading this. This was the last book. Well, I read my Patreon book last, but this was the last of the new books that I read today. And I left it to last, because I always leave this one till last now, because Romita's art is absolutely, basically, eye vomit. And it's one of these things where, they joke about Bendis having a lot of text, and I opened the first page of Action Comics and was greeted with this strain of one giant speech bubble from Brainiac. And it's essentially, the first few pages are essentially Brainiac doing the recap. It's the previously on Action Comics stuff. That said, though, and I appreciate Bendis putting those in, however, you can do it in a lot less text. I'll just say that. Because when I open a book and there's a speech bubble that literally is like a giant, moon shape.
How many parts is it broken into?
It's like a giant moon shape. If you think of like a,
crescent moon.
Crescent moon. That's the word I was looking for. It's basically looks like that, but made of speech bubbles. It's just how many bubbles? I mean, what? 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16.
When you have to start using your finger to follow them so you don't lose track of where you are when you're counting them, there's too many.
I do not disagree with that sentiment. So there's a lot of 2-page layouts and spreads in this one, 2 of which are vertical, which I'm never a fan of. Reading them digitally is just kind of weird, actually, because it kind of almost just looks like a regular single page, but just slightly wider. But because it's actually 2 pages, the text is suddenly much, much smaller. So it actually it's just kind of annoying. So I'm like, no, why is the text so small all of a sudden?
Rotate the screen to read it quickly.
Well, I'm reading it on monitor usually, so
I mean, I can still just rotate the orientation on with a keyboard shortcut.
I don't know how to do a keyboard shortcut, but typically I need to open up my display settings and flip it to portrait, and then
I think I have a thing to let me do keyboard shortcuts for it, because I have one monitor that I do swivel a lot back and forth.
Yeah, but swiveling a monitor does take a bit of time. It's not like swiveling a tablet where you just sort of go like a monitor.
No. But my point was, because I swivel that, I have the keyboard shortcuts set up and I know them.
Yeah. Plus, my monitor is like 32 inches. So the weird thing about mine is I actually have to tilt it back to spin it to go to portrait because it's too wide. It actually hits the desk if I do it without.
Sure.
So the point I'm making is that it's too much of an effort to make it an easy thing to do in the middle of a comic where I'm trying to just go flow from page to page. It's too much. It's too much. Anyway, that's not what this is about. The art is atrocious. Some of this is absolute garbage. There's a page, like 3 pages in. It's actually page like 5 and 6 because it's all 2-page spreads or whatever. But there's just this panel of Supergirl and John blasting this parasite. If you remember, the end of the last issue is that Connor Kent got struck down. Matt was very upset, thinking that he'd been killed.
Oh, he thought he was dead. Yeah, I remember that.
And they're just blasting this parasite with their heat vision, and it is like atrocious looking. This art is. Last issue was maybe one of the lesser like perpetrators of his bad art. Still really bad, but by no means the worst he's had in the book. This was just bringing it all back. It's all back to the glorious, absolute
He's
horrendous.
Determined to end this book with a bang.
And just all of it, there's a lot of 2 pages. The first half of the book is just them fighting this parasite thing. There's a lot of like blasts of heat vision, and there's a blast of light from the parasite, and they're getting knocked around. That said, though, there was my favourite caption of the entire maybe series, to be honest. And not just Bendis' run, my favorite caption of Action Comics, all 1,000,
all 1,020 whatever issues.
Yeah. So when Brainiac 5 is recounting things, and he's it switches to narration boxes after the first page, and he's talking about the fight and what's going on, and he explains what happened to Connor Kent. Right at the end of the 2-page spread, that's the second page essentially. It ends with him talking about Connor being shot down. Not shot, but you know what I mean. At the end of the last issue. And then the first narration box at the top of the third again, digital page, so this is like, 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 for this 2-page thing. The panel reads, "It's okay if you don't know who Connor Kent is." Oh, baby. That was a great...
Oh, it's like this issue exists, Matt.
It's a narration box for the ages.
I tell you, he's just not dead, though, right?
No, he's not dead. He's back up by the end. Yeah. Because the solution for dealing with the parasite, who Brainy figures out he's from a different Earth, and, they suspect that maybe that means that Leon also is, which is, something that was revealed. And it's actually a really interesting character beat. For her. And that's the thing, the story of this issue I think is fine. This is one of these things where so much of the first half is these 2-page spreads that this was clearly, like, okay, this fight's meant to be big and epic, let's let the artists do their thing. And if this had good art, like, I would love that they devoted half the issue to the fight. Because if this was an artist who could, make me go, wow, look at all these 2-page layouts, these are gorgeous, and these big action moments with the whole super family like working as one, it'd be wonderful. Instead, I'm like, oh, why does Supergirl look like Frankenstein in this panel? Why does why does Superboy have just 3 lines in his face to represent his eyes and mouth? Like, I'm asking these questions, and I'm being disturbed by the weird kind of sex doll appearances that a lot of his mouths have. I'm very confused by all this, and the art is atrocious. Superman actually flies off and leaves Kara and John to deal with the parasite at one point. He goes to sort of handle Red Cloud, who's watching from a distance. But probably one of the little story details that I really liked, when Superman's off separately, and Connor's back in the fray, Brainy's there, John's there, is I did kind of like that Kara, it's really just a one-panel thing, but they're all flying towards... They're all flying towards Superman fighting Red Cloud, and Kara just naturally becomes the leader of the team. She's kind of like, on my signal and not before. I kind of like how it clearly builds her as, no, she is the one, she's the oldest out of the rest of them. She is the one with the experience. She is the one who should be like leading them. The actual solution for the parasite is that Brainy goes and gets the, as they put it, they Kandor him. They shrink him, basically, and put him in like a force field. To the point where Kara's cracking jokes. She's like, oh, he's so cute. Can I keep him? And just things like that. Again, the art is just... I like the lips. I don't... The lips on, like, Romita Jr.'s art is disturbing to me. But they go to help Superman fighting Red Cloud. And Red Cloud's, like, sort of, like... Basically, it looks like she's kind of won, maybe, and, like, consumed Superman. And the rest look shocked. So that's one cliffhanger. The other cliffhanger is that Leon convinces Agent Chase and the FBI to arrest Lois. She's basically sort of like accusing Lois of being what she is, of being from a different Earth, and tries to frame her. So that's kind of the cliffhanger, the Daily Planet stuff, which is fine. The story here doesn't bother me. I think the problem with this issue is that it's meant to be, outside of the fact that there's maybe too many boxes at the start and speech bubbles in those first couple of pages, is that this is actually meant to be an artist showpiece issue. This is meant to be the artist gets to show their chops by doing these big, great fight sequences. And unfortunately, the art in these big 2-page layouts is not really good. The layouts aren't that good. And it kind of like... The issue, because it is meant to be this artist showpiece of these big fight scenes, it kind of hinders it even more than normal. The bad art hinders it more than it usually does overall. So, and I hate this because I like Action Comics a lot, and I've liked the story he's been telling since the start of the book, since he took over with issue 1000 or 1001. And this the last half of it being all this art is just completely, I want to say ruin.
Could you in good conscience recommend this run to anyone in the future, knowing that half of it is this? Is it what I'm saying is it good enough, assuming it sticks the landing on the story, is the story good enough that you can still say to people it's worth reading through the 4 trades or whatever it's going to be? Or would you be like, no, it's just not worth it?
It's a tough question, because I think if you're a Superman fan and you want to have read like the bigger stories and runs and whatever, I don't think I would dissuade someone because half of a run has bad art. I would just kind of warn them and just have your expectations in check. But I mean, on its own, I don't know, because if I was recommending this, I'd be recommending it with Superman, and I'd be saying, read Event Leviathan, read everything that's relevant.
Yeah, I'm kind of saying,
Yeah.
is Bendis' Superman as a whole? Would you go? Yeah, would you tell people? Not people who are just reading everything for completion's sake. Would you be like, you should read this? Would you recommend it to someone?
Well, Bendis' Superman, just on its
as a whole, like it kind of encompasses action, because like I said, I'm kind of assuming people are going to read both series, not just one here.
Well, it's again, it's like if you care about Superman, I would say no, you should read Bendis' run, because that's the story of him revealing who he is, and that feels like it's going to be an important part of his character. I'm sure they'll retcon it eventually, or continuity will reset or whatever, but it feels like an important facet to the character that does, and all that stuff is handled very well. All that stuff was really good. And so much of this Invisible Mafia stuff is really good, and the reveal of where Leon's from, and the idea that she's so like opposed to Superman because she grew up in a world with Ultraman is actually really fascinating, and it's doing all this stuff, and I don't understand why Romita Jr. keeps getting work. I really don't. It hurts me. It hurts me so. I will say, if I have a complaint about the story, is that Leon convincing Chase and the FBI to arrest Lois at the end of the issue just feels kind of easy. And obviously, it's going to all get fixed up by the end of the arc, I'm sure. But like, it just
kind of particularly easy, boring comic book cliffhanger, which we do complain about pretty consistently, I think, because it is a very common problem that you can't hold it against books too much, but it's still annoying. Yeah,
it's just kind of whatever. So, I mean, as far as the rating goes, this is all in the art. The art is what tanks it. The art is why it's as low as it's going to be, and I'm going to go with the 3 out of 10. But it is the art. The art got it there. But this story with good art would probably be a nice solid 8.
That is serious tanking.
Well, maybe 7.5. Maybe I'd deduct for those egregious bubbles and panels and.
I would like to think so.
In the first couple of pages, it's not too bad after that. It's just kind of that recap section. But it seeing that in the first page, it kind of takes the wind out of you when you're starting a book. You're like, oh my god, is it all going to be like this? And lucky it wasn't. But
no, I get it. I've opened up books like that before, and I've literally opened up a book like that in the shop. When I've been on the fence, so do I want this? I'll open it up and have a look at the first page. I'll see that, and I'll be like, nope, just put it back on the shelf. And then maybe the rest of the book's better, but when you start like that, it's just it puts you in a bad mood.
Yeah.